It's finally here! If you are watching this video, then that means that when it goes up, it will be less than 24 hours until Pokémon Legends ZA releases here in the UK. Safe to say, I cannot wait. If the more than 10 videos I've made on the game in the last year haven't clued you in, this is a game that has been on my mind since its reveal last year. And now it's so close that I can almost taste it. I'm looking forward to spending all day sat in my bedroom refreshing the Royal Mail link until it arrives at my door. I'll be shutting myself off in my room for a few days after that, well besides when I need to go to lectures, like the evening of actual release day, but oh well. Anyway, this video is just one final catch-up, giving all of my final thoughts and my final theories before we finally get most of the answers tomorrow. Though with Mega Dimension still looming on the horizon, it's safe to say that we're not quite out of the speculation zone yet. It's hard to believe that next month it'll have been 3 years since the last Pokémon game released, with Scarlet and Violet. The question of what would come next has been on the Pokémon community's mind since practically a week after Gen 9's release, and I don't think anyone could have guessed that an urban Pokémon game set in Lumio City with new Mega Evolutions and real-time battles would be the way forward. But in so many ways, I'm very glad it was. But at the same time, given just how long it's been since the initial reveal of the game, we've had a long time to build up the idea of the game in our heads, and you can tell by my channel's content that I've not shied away from the insane theories. Do I think that ZA is going to reach all of my hopes and dreams? I'd like to think so, but I'm not entirely convinced, since I quite like a big world to explore, and as good as Lumio City is, it's no replacement for the recent Zelda games Hyrule or even Paldea. However, in other respects I think that there's a ton of positive in this game. Bringing back Mega Evolutions, taking the series forward with real-time combat, which will in turn bring the difficulty up, re-exploring Kalos, building on the character customization, and ultimately just having a new Pokemon experience to enjoy. Anticipation is a funny thing. Building expectations and excitement, it can be quite dangerous. Allowing too much time from reveal to release in the games industry is not always a good thing. Fans will keep speculating and building on what they know, and at the end of the day, if you can't deliver on what they now expect, they'll be disappointed with the end product. We can see this with games like Tears of the Kingdom, where fans were disappointed by the lack of improvement in the areas that Breath of the Wild needed it most, and even Silksong, where fans have been disappointed by how overly difficult the developers have made the game, which was probably done to appease fans clamouring for a more challenging experience. Legends ZA has the longest development cycle of any Pokémon game ever, and that comes with both benefits and pitfalls. Fans see this and think, wow, there must be so much to this game that they're not telling us. But actually, redeveloping the entire Pokémon battle system, designing a city that has to incorporate areas that Pokémon can roam freely, and creating a full experience in a much smaller location takes a lot longer than people expect. It's very possible that the Pokémon and character design teams were done years ago, with the planning and programming team working on the new battle system probably taking much longer, as it's a very difficult balance that you have to find. And it takes a long time to redesign the entire Pokémon battle system that we've been using for the last 30 years from scratch. With that in mind, we should probably be careful that we're not overdoing our expectations for this game. I'm going to be honest, I've probably contributed to the overhyping of this game in some ways, with my speculation on things like the Area Zero connections, and trying to tie hints between Sword and Shield in this game. While I never intended that to be the case, and frankly I never really intended to suggest that we're going to see a ton of callbacks aside from some possible connections to Scarlet and Violet, I think it's probably a good idea for me to just kind of sit here and condense my own expectations, rather than wants or theories for this game. Firstly, I fully expect that we'll be staying within Lumio City for the base game experience. I think if we were going to outside Lumios, it would have been in the DLC, but with Mega Dimension also seemingly being set in Lumios, just in a different dimension, that to me pretty much confirms that we'll be staying within Lumios throughout. I also expect that Lumios itself isn't going to be as big as I want it to be. It's not going to be Hyrule 2, Paldea 2, or even probably as big as Hisui was. If I had to guess based on the evidence I've seen, I'd say it's probably going to be about the size of 3 or 4 of Hisui's environments stuck together. But I also expect that it'll be far more dense and have a lot more to do than Hisui or Paldea can claim to. We're also already seeing tons of cafes, shops, trainers, and rooftops that we can explore and enjoy in the game, so there's that. But I also think we're going to see a ton more side quests than in Legends Arceus, and even some other experiences. I could see minigames like the Pokéathlon, or other features like trainer PR videos, especially since we see the iconic PR video studio purple building right outside the train station. Wild Pokemon can also be found in open zones, specifically the wild zones. I'm expecting around 20 to 25, given both the size of the zones and what we've seen of them thus far. I also expect that not all of them will be open from the start, with the city's redevelopment being something that actively happens throughout the story, giving us more wild zones later on into the game. As for the battle zones, I think we'll see them in quite a few different locations. Based on the demo footage, they're a tad smaller than I first expected, so I'm expecting quite a few different locations. However, based on the fact that wild zones are still active at night, we can also expect that they won't cross over with one another. I expect that we won't still be able to go into many buildings like we could in older Pokemon games, which I think is a real shame, but it will probably take the Scarlet and Violet approach of only story important buildings and maybe clothes shops. I also expect that we'll see a relatively normal Pokédex size, around 400. I would have said lower given Legends Arceus' 250 dex list, but you know, that gameplay focused on studying every single Pokemon available in that game. If they'd included a normal-sized Pokédex, many players could have considered it tedious and would have given up partway through. Given that Z and ZA were back to the usual catch-and-done strategy from other main series titles, I'm hoping that the Pokédex size will be back to the usual number to make up for this. I also expect that the Pokédex aspect of the game will be pretty standard, and maybe will just likely have a relatively minor role. I say this because so far in all of the shots of Mabel that we've seen, she's been in Professor Sycamore's office, and we've only really seen one interaction with her, likely the one that gives us the Pokédex. We've just been seeing different snippets of him. Now personally, I'd like her to have a bit more to do, like we saw with Sonia, Laventon, Kukui, or even Sycamore himself. I want to know more about her decision to become a Pokemon researcher after leaving Team Flare, and if I'm being honest, I want to see a bit more from her in terms of story involvement, considering the story will definitely end up tying back to X and Y's plot. But ultimately, I think she's going to be our stand-in for the usual Pokemon professor, like Jacques, Magnolia, Juniper, Rowan, Birch, Elm, and Oak. She's going to have a few minor appearances throughout, but ultimately will be confined to Sycamore's laboratory. I expect she'll give us a vague, "Wow, you're on the road to Pokédex completion" message, like usual, and then give us the shiny charm when we do actually eventually complete the dex. Moving on, let's talk about the new battle system. I fully expect it to be a lot of fun, based on both my own tastes as I've gotten older, as well as what other people who've played the game at demo booths have said. I expect I'll enjoy it loads, though I'll probably complain that I'm really bad at it. I hope that I won't be so bad that I can't get the exclusive Mega Stones, because God knows I really want to get all 3 of the Carlos Mega Stones. I expect that the ZA Battle Club will probably be fine for a while, but we'll just get too competitive after a couple of months. Conversely, I expect the ZA Royale will be a good challenge, but also a ton of fun. I don't expect it to be ultra Necrozma levels of difficult, or even like Cynthia, but at the end of the day, we're getting used to a completely new battle system, which is far more complicated than the turn-based system that we have been using. So even if the fights are as easy as Gita was in Scarlet and Violet, they'll still feel more challenging in some ways. As for the Rogue Mega Battles, I kind of expect that they'll be less challenging than the demo footage made it look, based on what reviewers have been saying. But that as the game progresses, they'll get far more challenging and some very interesting boss battles. Like the Noble Pokemon in Arceus. The only part of the Rogue Mega Pokemon that I don't really know what to expect is whether or not they're going to be part of the story like the Noble Pokemon were, or if they'll be optional. Currently, I kind of think they're going to be optional boss battles for the most part, with some being story-based. Mainly because on the overworld they have this aura effect that really reminds me of Max Raid and Terror Raid dens, which are optional as well, so I'm thinking that this might be the same. I also expect that there'll be about 10 to 15 in the game. We've already seen quite a few so far, with Mega Absol, Camerupt, Victory Bell, Banette, Gyarados, Houndoom, Steelix, Slowbro, Dragonite and Tyranitar all being shown off. So we know we're getting at least double the amount from Legends Arceus in 5, but already with just 10, I'm hoping that there'll still be quite a few more than that, so maybe even up to 20 or more. But there was that one Nintendo employee at the initial demo for ZA who said that the majority of Mega Stones will be obtained through exchanging Mega Shards with Quasartico Inc. However, that they also said that the plus moves would just power up moves when Mega Evolved, so I'm not sure how much I trust that. I do hope that there will be more, as the battles look like they're going to be tons of fun, and feeling defeating them would make it feeling like we've truly earned the unlocking of that Mega Evolution, if that makes sense. I expect that the story will focus on Infinity Energy, be a sequel to X and Y, and yet somehow also a retelling. A bit like Legends Arceus retold the story of Diamond and Pearl, but in a new context, while also acting as a prequel. I fully expect that the game will have Jet and Vinny be the main villains, given that they have complete control over Lumios's redevelopment, but I also expect that the Rust Syndicate will be acting as the Team Skull or Team Yell for this game, with the game probably trying to fake us out into believing that Corbeau will be the real villain. I don't yet know how the Kalos legendaries fit into this. We know that they're all going to be present, and Zygarde is as close to a game mascot as this game has, and Xerneas and Yveltal's main colours are hidden in the game's logo, but in a way where they're also drawing attention to it every single time they show the logo in a trailer. I probably have tons of other expectations for the game, but I think that about covers it. Well, aside from one tiny thing. I do still expect Diancie to have a role to play in the story. Whether that's its own story or if that's the main story, I think it will end up showing up here. Okay, I think I've yammered on long enough about expectations and anticipation, so now let's look at my actual feelings going into tomorrow. It's quite weird looking back. This last year and a half has been many things for me. Exciting, nerve-wracking, busy mostly. I've had experiences that I will cherish forever, such as my getting to return to Tokyo for 3 weeks, building up my skills as a content creator, and tons of experience at university. I've learned so much about game design, not just from my course, but from making these videos for all of you as well. And I'll tell you what, it's been really weird having this game at the back of my mind for so long, then completely taking over my headspace since Doctor Who ended back in May. Finally having this game release and knowing it's less than a week away, a day away from when you're watching this, it doesn't quite feel real. It's not the first time a game has felt this way for me, with Tears of the Kingdom giving me that same feeling. So did Doctor Who Season 1 last year. It's still a weird feeling to know that after all of this, I don't really have anything imminent to look forward to in the same way. Hyrule Warriors is coming out, and then there's a couple of Doctor Who Big Finish releases, but after that there's no announced Pokemon game coming soon, aside from Mega Dimension, which actually does help a bit, but we'll come back to that. There's no Zelda game, and Doctor Who's future is far from certain at the moment. Mega Dimension definitely helps in that regard. It's a DLC that I both wasn't expecting and I'm not sure what to expect from. It's not an easy one to think on, that's for sure, and I think that probably came across in my video talking about said announcement. I'd say I'm incredibly excited for this game. Not only is it a brand new Pokemon game with new Mega Evolutions and new story, and yet also bringing back Lumiose City, which feels so wonderful in so many ways, but there's also a part of me that is hesitant. I love exploring in games. I've spent a combined 800 plus hours in Hyrule across Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, finding every detail, every Korok, exploring any part of the map that might hold a view that I hadn't noticed before. It's the same with Pokémon games, but usually with far less interesting worlds to explore. And with Pokémon Legends ZA, the world's just a city. Granted, Lumiose is the biggest explorable city in the Pokémon world, but just because a city's a bit of a big city does not make it as big as a full region. Now look, I've spoken about this tons on the channel. Lumiose City is going to be a lot bigger in this game than it was in X and Y. That's just the nature of making a small part of a map into a full map, especially when you've made the jump not only of 2 generations worth of hardware, but also from handheld to console development. Like I said earlier in the video, Lumiose is going to be dense, at least based on what we can see so far, and that does have me very excited, but at the same time I know I'm going to get a bit bored of the city streets and rooftops by the time Mega Dimension rolls around. Here's hoping that the sewer portion of the city isn't the only environment they've been keeping a secret. I'm also a tad nervous about the online portion of the game. Legends Arceus excelled for me because it didn't force me to go online to get everything in the game. And while ZA isn't necessarily forcing you to do things like that for the Pokédex, it is forcing you if you want all of the Mega Evolutions that are available in the game. On the website it clarifies that there are different tiers of rewards for the ZA Battle Club. Battle win rewards, rank rewards, and rank up rewards. It seems based on the wording of the website that the Mega Stones are going to be rank up rewards. I don't entirely know what this means, and we won't know until Thursday when the first rank season begins with Greninjite, but I am hoping it's not going to be too difficult to get the Carlos starter Megas. I will say that I'm glad that they resisted the temptation to throw some version exclusive Pokemon in there and make the game Pokémon Legends Z and Pokémon Legends A. That would have been a nightmare. If I'm being completely open and honest about it all though, I just can't wait to play this game. New Pokemon game feeling is a real thing, and it's a feeling I always cherish. It's been 2 years since I last felt this thanks to the Scarlet and Violet DLC, though that was definitely a watered down version, with Tears of the Kingdom being the last time I really felt that I could not wait to dive into a game. I've decided that I'm going to have to distract myself throughout Thursday morning so that I don't just sit there in anticipation. And then I've got a Japanese lesson in the evening, but then I've freed up Friday and my weekend for pure playtime. So that's going to be a fantastic weekend as far as I'm concerned. It's also quite exciting to think that this is going to be the first Pokemon game in a while that is going to look and run brilliantly at launch, thanks to me having a Switch too. And while I have bought the Switch version because I prefer the box art and not having a load of legal jargon on it, I will be picking up the upgrade pack day one. I've also bought the Champions bundle from it from the My Nintendo store in the UK. It's less of a collector's edition, but it does have more of the fun goodies that kind of come with it. It's like a load of tat, but you know, you've got a Mega Charizard X and Y statue, you've got a set of pin badges, a statue of the starters, a mug, a cap, and an umbrella, and I just can't wait, because I can't wait to use that umbrella. It's going to be so much fun. Excitement is an understatement, and I'm at a point now where I know that even if some parts of this game are disappointing, there will still be a lot of good to come out of it, and I will ultimately have a fantastic experience. But I think that that's all of my feelings, at least the ones that I can verbalise at this stage. So now let's take one final look at the game's promotional material and see if we can make any theories. Okay, you'd think after I spent the last few months theorising on anything I can, that I wouldn't have anything to talk about here. But you'd be wrong. There are always some things that I miss, and some small theories that don't fit into their own videos. Let's start with the logos at the end of the final trailer. In the post I made a couple of weeks back, I did mention some basic ideas and observations, such as the one on the right sharing its colour scheme with Alolan Muck, and featuring a dragon wing in the centre. Interestingly, the dragon wing shape is actually the same shape as the dragon wing used for the Dragonium Z crystal in the Alola games. Now, what we really need to ask ourselves is, what the hell is this about? It definitely feels as though whatever this is, it's from Alola. We can rule out ideas like it being Z moves or something like that, and I feel it might be something more about a new Mega Evolution, or a faction that will be operating in Lumio City like the Rust Syndicate. Maybe it's a way that we can get some Alolan forms in the game? The one on the left, however, reminds me of Unova due to the colour scheme, and the shape of the icon itself being based on the wing design of Zekrom and Reshiram. Again, if I had to guess, this is a faction operating in Lumio City. Thinking back to X and Y, the games did actually feature statues of Unova's legendary Pokemon in Perfume Palace, and we did also get our first hints to Alola with the strange souvenir in a hotel. Could it be that this is something of a development of those concepts? Now, instead of just small nods, we're going to see people who've actually moved to Lumio City from Unova and Alola, and have helped create a likeness to their home regions in the city. It would help to explain a lot of the palm trees we've been seeing around Lumio City in the trailers. It would also make a lot of sense in the way that in 2023, the Scarlet and Violet DLC tried its very best to be a subtle wink and a nod to the idea of Johto and Unova remakes, before dropping a Carlos game on us. So could this be a continuation of that? It might be that the Unova faction isn't actually Unova based at all, but maybe instead based on Hoenn, as a reference to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Although if this is the case, I'm not entirely sure what the symbol is actually supposed to depict. I know that we said that there doesn't appear to be a clear formula for Pokémon Legends Arceus here, but I did see this and instantly thought of the Diamond and Pearl clans, though I doubt it'll be quite as simple as that, especially as they don't seem to depict the Kalos legendary Pokemon. Actually, that's a really good thought. If the one on the right is an Alolan faction, maybe they'll help us with learning more about Zygarde, considering that while it's a Kalos legendary, it does have a lot of ties to the Alola region, considering most of its forms were originally discovered there. Moving on, let's talk about the sewers. Wow, this looks interesting. It's been a very long time since we last explored the underparts of a city in a Pokemon game. I think it might even have been Black and White 2 with Castelia sewers. While that was just one location though, that wasn't too small on its own, I am really hoping that the sewers are fully formed and span the entire city or near enough. I've spoken since my very first map video on the game about the idea of an undercity, and this is definitely something that could be part of that. I still think there's possibly more than we realise under there, and it's very interesting how controlled they've been about showing us this, with it's only having one shot in the final trailer, as well as a couple of crop shots of Mega Sableye and Mega Mawile down there. What I'm secretly hoping for is that this isn't the only secret location they've been keeping from us. I think there's still a chance for some of the wild zones to be better formatted for different environments. We've already seen that Wild Zone 8 is more desert-like, so Pokemon like Sandile tend to live there. Could it be that other wild zones are icy or volcanic? Hard to say at this stage, but here's hoping. We also kind of need to talk about the rebuilding of Prism Tower. In most of the footage we've seen, it looks completely normal, but in a recent trailer we've seen that at some point during the game they're going to put some scaffolding around it. Instantly my brain jumped to the idea of the ultimate weapon, whether it means bringing the ultimate weapon to Lumio City, or if it instead means that Prism Tower will act as a focus or conduit for the ultimate weapon somehow. I don't know. In some of the recent trailers, we've been getting quick peeks at the climax for the game, where it kind of looks like there's a rush of infinity energy erupting from beneath Prism Tower. In the shot of Team MZ stood atop the Hotel Z roof, looking over to the tower, we can see it visually looks the same, but all of that energy is surrounding it. While we don't know yet what effect this is having, I think this is going to be a situation similar to the climax of the Alola and Galar games, where suddenly rogue Mega Pokemon will be flooding Lumios, like we theorised happened in Paldea in the past. And Team MZ will have to split up, each tackling different parts of the problem while we go to Prism Tower and deal with things at the root cause. Also, I've done some analysis of the shots, and the shots of Floette during that section of the trailer are very clearly not from the climax of the game. They actually appear to be from the very beginning of the game, as not only is it set in a battle zone, but the player is still wearing the clothes that they first arrived to Lumio City in, which we never see outside of those very early moments of gameplay. So I'm assuming that this is a case of us stepping into a battle zone before we're ready, and Floette has to rescue us with her Light of Ruin. But with all of that being said, we're at the end of the video. For one last time, we bring these pre-release discussions about ZA to a close. Starting tomorrow, the real work begins, analysing every inch of this game for the hidden lore and discussing the game design as well. I'll probably be gone for a couple of weeks before I make my next video, as I've not got one planned and I really want to see what ZA brings to the table before I make any plans. Like I said, I cannot wait for this game to come out tomorrow, and you can bet that I'll be having the time of my life with it. Just a quick reminder that if you want to join the community Discord, and the links are in the description, alongside links for other ways that you can support my content. ZA and Mega Dimension and any other leaks are banned from the comment section. Thank you all so much for being so considerate with that in the last few weeks. It has been genuinely so lovely to not have to scour the comment section with half an eye closed to make sure I don't spoil myself. So thank you for that. And I hope you all really enjoy getting to dive into ZA as much as I will. With all of that being said, au revoir.